Okay, so I've been learning a lot lately. This video, I'm going to say something like, if you're conservative, you need to watch this, something, whatever. I've been learning a lot lately, been reading a lot. For friends on the other side of the aisle of, you know, I've been learning quite a bit. You read a lot of books and you realize, like, you got to approach things with nuance, it's just all like things. They don't need to be like crazy. And nowadays, it seems like everything's so crazy, and crazy doesn't work. I think we're all burnt out. We're all exhausted. When you have crazy, like high energy, whatever, it just doesn't work. A lot of people don't want that. People want things to go smoothly towards like a greater situation, and I think that's probably the only way that like things will get better is if things go a little more smooth. Because I get sometimes I understand like you go too far anyway. People will find an issue with that. So that's just for everybody else. It's just all like I want to be more smooth about my stuff, and that's just really just setting up this video because this video is not going to be smooth. This video is dedicated to the conservative-minded individual of contemporary times. It's too late for you. I don't think that there's any convincing. I'm not here to convince you. I hope that you appreciate and respect that because I don't want to tell people, you're not children. Conservative minded individuals are not children. They're adults. They have aspirations and they have goals and they carry themselves and, they care about a lot of things. They have families and they have loved ones and they have communities. And, to that extent, I celebrate you and I applaud you because that's the most important thing you can do nowadays. You can love your people and take care of your people, take care of your own, and just put in your hard work and just continue letting society move forward. And if you're a blue collar worker, I love you, but that's about as far as I'd like to go. Philosophically speaking, if you're a conservative minded individual, you should avoid politics. um I mean, there's a lot of people who should avoid a lot of things, and a conservative should avoid politics if that's how you carry yourself and like that's how you find affirmation. Because I just really hate how people like utilize their own self like worth, to deconstruct other people. It's just like being a racist and like being a hateful person and being a transphobe even, and being a homophobe and like hating queer people. It just reeks of insecurity to me because like if I have nothing to do with somebody, I'm not going to spend my whole life thinking about them and make an issue with people. You know what I mean? Just over there. I don't need this like warped sense of tribalism of tearing other people down. The reason why a lot of people can have pride in their own race, and a lot of people have this conversation, is because people do like good things with the pride they feel for their own race. There's never been like a humanitarian effort that's been organized under the white race. So like that sort of twisted, warped tribalism of like loving your own whiteness, I think that that's like really hypocritical, and really what you're just doing is operating to tear other people down. And being conservative minded nowadays is just all like not paying attention because there's AI, you got all this crazy stuff going on, all this information everywhere, so you can just kind of like pick what you want, and you can build your own narrative through table scraps, right? But you're not looking at the bigger picture. I have this argument every time I talk to a conservative. We come together and we say, hey, all of these, people in power, they're all affiliated with that one guy who went to prison and he did the thing that we all were talking about for like however many years, way back in the day. It's been a long time. Why are we still talking about this guy? It's old news. Like, we all come together and we all agree, like, there are so many messed up people in power. I'll have that like conversation with a conservative. I'll be like, yeah, all of them, including the ones who are in the government currently. And then it's just all like, no, actually, he was a Democrat. It's just all like, buddy, they're all on the same team. And it's like hard to say that because like I think that it's like also like I don't know. I have no loyalty to the Democratic Party. I hope you guys know that. I have no loyalty to the Republican Party either. And I'm not a centrist, by the way. Definitely not a centrist. If you watch my thing, I think we should be working towards like humanitarianism and like some equilibrium within society to bring us all together so we can all work together, because there's a lot of people out here who I love. Okay? I don't like look at people and like think lesser of them because they're working like, you know, a construction job or they're picking up trash or whatever. You guys deserve all the love in the world. You know, you make society move forward. But we got to focus on something other than pulling us backwards, right? Conservatism is just pulling us backwards. And there's a lot of things that I can say with a lot of nuance, but I don't want to say those things. Just know that there's not a politician in office who cares about you. They're like really hurting the rural communities. I think in the future there's a great possibility that they could, you know, bring the power back to red states. I think that that's like kind of the optics that they're going for. What they're going to do is they're going to bail out red state communities for like hospitals, you know, stuff like that. After they gutted resources, they're going to bail out the red states, but they're going to let the blue states suffer. Even though like the blue, at least in theory, I'm not going to say like philosophically the Democratic Party is like a powerhouse, but the Democrats do a lot for the economy. Like at least the very little. Like what they do is they help and they make money flow. What the Republicans do is they like to funnel the money. Essentially, we have a lot of wealth in this country, but we're never going to see said wealth because it's all funneled upwards. As soon as that wealth starts being hoarded, you know, it's just like there's no fluidity of money in this country, and the Republicans don't care about that. The conservatives don't care about that. And it's just all like, I wish you guys would know that your problem isn't, you know, the person on the street begging. It's not, you know, somebody who's a different skin color than you. Those aren't the problems. You know, it's these weirdo, nerdy Silicon Valley types that have like inserted themselves into the conversation. You know, your Peter Thiels and your Mark Zuckerbergs and your Elon Musks. You know, they might as well be lizard people at that point. Am I right? They're just weirdos. And you know, I really don't want to win people over. But like I also feel like I don't want to be too rough on people because like a lot of people don't know anything really. But I just think it's so weird to be racist and like hate Arabic, you know, and like Muslim and whatever, you know, Middle Eastern individuals are just, you know, anybody else. It's just like we all got to work together. It's been that way for hundreds and hundreds of years, but all of a sudden it's just all like, now it's like a purity test, like of like who's the most racially pure. Like we're a little far past that point, wouldn't you say? I think in a contemporary society we're all kind of linked together to something or other, and there's no purity anymore. I don't know. It's crazy to me. And like I have some extremes for the extremely minded individuals, you know, people who are kind of like building themselves off of like a radical hatred. I think those people should be in jail. If you're extremely radicalized and you carry yourself in a way that is detrimental to the people around you and society at whole, I think that, you know, there's just a point where you should be exiled from, you know, society. I don't believe in freedom of speech. I don't believe in that project anymore. I feel like I don't know. I actually do believe in censorship because I don't think that we're ready for it as a society. As a society with like we have instant connection, you know, to just about everything. You know, any information that you want, you can find, you know, for the most part. It's never been like this. You know, it's never been like this. We've thought about things much differently for, you know, a long time, but it's relatively a new thing to have information at your fingertips. So some people they're not ready to make that jump either. But I think that overly, you know, pumping information into society there just leaves a lot of room for bad actors, and I think that there should be censorship, and we should focus on something, more objective. We can't do schizopolitics anymore. I think that like contemporary era is not fit for schizopolitics. Schizophrenia is a very real thing, and it is being exacerbated by the methods of control, by the methods of information. And I don't necessarily believe that society should be totally deconstructed and destroyed. And I don't believe in vigilantism. I don't believe in all that stuff. I think that we should just have guidance. There's not everyone who thinks about things and challenges themselves. There's not enough people like that. And if there are people, some people who like to challenge themselves to make the most schizophrenic worldview imaginable. And that's where conservatism comes in. And I think that it's a very detrimental philosophy to hold in a contemporary society. It's crazy because, like, we can see what's going on behind the veil. You could make the argument back, nearly 100 years ago, 80 years ago, back in World War II. People didn't have the access to information, so, but I'm going to say it, the Nazi Party wasn't a very intelligently managed party. They weren't very intelligent people. What they did was they branded really well, by the way. I will say their branding was immaculate. That was like the big selling point, right? That you can just brand something. And like nowadays it doesn't work that way. We have information. We all know what's going on. We can all see it. And there's a lot of people calling stuff out. A character like Epstein back in, the 40s probably would get swept under the rug pretty quickly because it's not a consistent news cycle, It's like we have information now. And like even someone like me, I'm not necessarily like the most great of persons here, It's just like people say what I say and they say it better, but I like to kind of glue everything that I like together and just all like there's a lot of people I really enjoy, but I also want to like care about nature. But anyway, it's just like back in those days, it was just, I don't know, we didn't have video of what was going on. They were recording stuff, but they were recording stuff in like a more triumphant a way, It's just all like, nowadays it's kind of pathetic and sad because we all see it, You can't really be mysterious like you used to be in those days, for better or worse, It's just all like, creatively speaking, let's be real, we all wish we could go back in the day and enjoy some music that was all like far less, phones and recording and everything's overstimulating. But back in the day, it's just like you could just enjoy stuff to enjoy it. But it's just like we have to focus on like being far more objective as a society now. And I think that people should like not be able to say certain things and they shouldn't be able to operate certain ways. I mean, like, and the most radical of people should be put in jail, and politicians who operate the way they do should be punished. I say this often, and back in the day, they didn't punish the Confederates. That was a big mistake. They didn't punish the Confederates after the Civil War. That was a massive mistake. And they didn't punish the insurrectionists after January 6th. That's another crazy, crazy mistake they made. They had the opportunity, these people, whatever, but it's just like they pushed it too far now. I'm never going to be happy unless like something genuinely radical happens, to these Republican politicians. I'm so glad that people are turning on Israel. I really do not like Israel. I'm sorry to say they're not my favorite people. And I'm not going to elaborate why. You can probably make the assumption. But, I like to celebrate people. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I like people with integrity. And like me, myself, and I, if I'm put into any position of power, I will operate with integrity. And that has been the case in like every position that I've been put in. And I don't want to be a politician. I really don't, because if I had integrity as a politician, they'd hang me. They'd shoot me in the back of the head and throw me off a balcony. But if you see me as an individual, I want people to know that, like, I won't take advantage of you because I don't find comfort or solace in making people's lives worse. And that's why I do not operate within the conservative framework, because I feel like at least voting for those things, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I wouldn't. I'm so glad I wasn't like, back in the day, I think we had this conversation here that, like, politics used to be who I surrounded myself with, and I thought that there was, like, some kind of, like, integrity of operating around conservative-minded individuals. I never voted conservative, but, like, I was like, oh, yeah, this is so cool, but, like, immediately after, I was just like, this is the dumbest thing ever, because it's just all, like, it's so sad and pathetic. But I don't know. I'm a big self-love advocate, and some of my leftist friends are like, that's so corny, and it's just all like, well, you should internalize self-love, and then that's always the first thing. You should, like, care about yourself so you can care more about others, because the more you love yourself, the more you love others. And, like, you got to find, like, that balance of peace and meditation. I thought this video was going to be far more rougher. I was going to say some stuff, but I don't know. If you're an idiot and you just hate me because I don't like conservatives, at that point, that's, the prison thing. I don't think that you should be able to talk in public. I think you should be shamed. If you don't believe in what I'm saying here, and you think that, like, we really need to funnel money to the politicians so everyone else will be worse off, including myself, because I can't imagine the thought of a black person being in my position of power. It's just all like, I do understand the privilege. I don't think people understand this either, because, like, they're kind of sheltered and they kind of have tunnel vision and they kind of existed the way they've done their whole life. As a white person, people listen to me a little, more, especially because, like, a little masculine coded, it's just all like, a lot of people will give me a chance. A lot of people will, like, want to give me a chance. It's kind of crazy. Like, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just a really weird position, because I've been, like, so blinded by insecurity my whole life that, like, now that I'm challenging said insecurity, it's just all like, wow. I do really have it good. As an artist myself, I feel like the people who have given me a chance and gave me structure might have some privilege behind that. Who knows? But it's good to consider those things, that, like, maybe we do have it a little better than other people, and maybe other people should have a chance to exist, and we shouldn't have to, like, worry about somebody usurping whatever for your power. I'm just saying words that I think sound right, but, like, coming up and taking your power from you. It's just like, I don't think it's the case. I think people just want to live, and they want to, like, be comfortable, and they want to support their families. They have families too. They have kids. They have, parents. They grew up just like you. A lot of these people are just normal people. I have a lot of family down south. I have a lot of family, like, in the deep south, and it's just all like, I understand, like, that kind of energy, right? And people, it's just all like behind, all of the forward presentation, it's just all like, a lot of these people are just like your family. They're just like your grandparents. They're just like your cousins. They're just like your friends. You got to love these people. They're worthy of love. And, like, that's why I don't like racism, because it's just all like, a lot of these people, they might operate in the kind of, like, the contemporary conditions of, like, capitalism. I'm not gonna totally denounce capitalism, because, like, I haven't read up enough about what that truly would look like. It's stupid for me to make that assumption, right? But, like, as things now exist, there are people on the road who shouldn't be driving. There are people who live in lower income areas that, are exposed to violence, and I don't think that that's, like, a pattern thing, other than just how America kind of separates class, right? And, like, people have generational poverty, just like people have generational wealth. And I was lucky enough to take the most out of my education and kind of go upwards with it. I was born into a lower middle class household with my parents making just the bare minimum. My parents were factory workers, and we lived in a house. It was pretty nice. But my parents were factory workers, and they didn't really focus on this thing right here, this direction right here. They didn't focus on this direction. They stayed in their positions their whole lives, and a lot of people in my family, in my generation, kind of made that separation from like, here to here. You know what I mean? I'm still working on it myself. I'm not necessarily the whatever. I am very lucky though. I'm at least living comfortably and pretty happy. And I bought my own car. That was pretty nice, right? Bought my first car, and that was like a really nice thing. I got that car to my next car, and in between all of that, better opportunities arose, and like it's been pretty nice. I've been working pretty consistently for 2 years. Currently unemployed, but like I don't know. I'm glad that like I can be smart about my own position. But a lot of people, I feel really bad because a lot of people don't really have that opportunity. That they don't really get to, make that massive jump, and it's what's comfortable to them. And like some of these people out here, they just deserve some love. I got some love. I got some appreciation. I had a roof over my head that I wasn't paying for at the time. And I think that really like set me up because like I actually had people who like wanted to help me like do my best, and what was my best was like waking up every morning in a house and like showering, getting ready and going to work and working there for like 2 or 3 years. It was crazy. I don't know. Without that opportunity, I'd be screwed. I wouldn't be able to be in the position I'm in today. I'd probably be homeless, and I'd probably still be homeless. So like, I don't know. You just got to put yourself in that position. Like, to be honest, I just want a better world for people. I don't want to have to fight people who just think that like Jeffrey Epstein was a good guy. I think that a lot of people would agree to say like, hey, if Trump was in the Epstein files and it comes out, then I will be the first one to denounce him. And I really I'm thankful for you guys, but like at the same time, it's just all like, can we work towards something greater? I think we all deserve something a little better. And I genuinely believe that this is a very wealthy nation. I think that there's a lot of money in this nation, and if money flowed, then we'd all be in a better place. And, even in the, poorest areas of rural America, if money just flowed, if it had liquidity, it would be far easier to make that money than in, like, even some of the most well-off places in the world. We are a very strong country, and, like, I understand why people are proud of this country, because if it was running, it's just not running. It's currently under Republican control, and we got to realize that Republicans aren't the ones who like move things. And I understand that like they all work together. The things you hate about the Democrats, I hate about the Democrats too. There's a lot of people who are very honest about what the Democrats are doing. I personally just can't get behind like the hate and the tribal rhetoric. I think that that's very rough. Like I think it's detrimental. I think that it's backwards. I think that we should work together and we should have more love. And like I know it sounds idealistic, but the things I've gotten in my life were because other people were like kind enough to me to extend that hand, and like I try my best to like work within around me. So it's just like I don't know. I just wish people had more love. That's most important thing. And like I don't know, stop voting against the interests of other people to pull yourself up further so you can distance yourself from them, because eventually it will just come crashing down on you. And in a perfect world, when the Nuremberg trials come to fruition in the contemporary era, those Nuremberg trials are going to be deep justice. I genuinely hope so. That would be a world where things would get better. I don't think that there's any other world where like genuine Nuremberg trials if they don't happen, if there isn't like justice for what's happened to this nation, you can say in a way that it is a great nation. But like we really need justice, and I think that like racism and like transphobia and homophobia, I think that those things should all be considered what they are. You don't see people out here advocating for like sexual abuse or anything, because that's weird, that's taboo. We all hate people like that. We all come together and we hate people like that. And I think that we should all come together and hate racists. We should all come together to hate like bigots. The marginalized people really reflect a strong society, how we treat them. How we treat the elderly and the disabled. How do we treat those people? In a great society, those people would just be operating on their own. They wouldn't be driving around. Like, they wouldn't have to be forced to drive around, especially the elderly. And it ain't about autonomy. It's about making people safe on the streets, and like making sure that those people like don't have to live in stress. They've drove their whole lives. It's time to not drive anymore. It's time to go and rest and relax and appreciate life. And you shouldn't be working yourself to death. I don't think that anyone should have to work until they die. I think that there should be a point where you can just like move on and just enjoy yourself, I don't know, we should all have money, and we should all, I don't know. And I'm not saying work is bad either. I think that, work is important, but I wish there was more opportunities to work jobs we enjoyed, instead of like making sure there's a McDonald's on every corner and making sure there's a whatever everywhere. And the lawn care industry, that's a really rough one. It's a really rough one. I don't believe in ecocide. I don't believe we should be killing off the insect population. I think that they deserve to exist too, because without them, we are nothing. And we will die. I genuinely have my bets on us all dying in the next 10 years, but who knows? Maybe things can change. That's a rough one, I don't believe in like the security of our ecosystem or our climate. And I understand that some people, they believe the bigger narrative that, we'll just keep moving forward. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. And if climate change is real, we got like 10 years before we're all dead. So I hope you guys enjoy your last 10 years. And I hope you guys don't have grandchildren either, because they're going to be dead too. You got grandchildren, they're going to die. Does that make you feel good? It's just like, that's why I don't like conservatism, because it's just all like, what you got? We're all going to die. And we're all going to die a violent, awful, horrible death. Probably one with fire and famine and pestilence. There's mosquitoes in I want to say Iceland. Should be Greenland though, right? I mean, Greenland's ice and Iceland's green. Who knows? God, please reach one conservative with this video and just say like, it's so much worse than you think it is, and you should need to focus on better things. And protecting the rights of women and children and minorities and the marginalized could actually lead us to a better society for yourself, where you're not dead in the next 10 years. But if you want to like burn that bridge, I hope that like there's a prison that like can carry you for the rest of your life, because I think that like just radically conservative minded individuals would be like so much better off just in prison, not anywhere near us. We need to really fix this schizophrenia problem in America. Thank you so much.